Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into the Trinitarios,
That's right. A Dominican-American criminal group started right here in New York City.
but their influence, it's gone way beyond the city limits.
Definitely.
We've pulled together quite a bit of information. Main source is a Wikipedia entry, but it's, backed up by news articles, government docs, solid stuff.
Yeah, the sourcing seems pretty robust for this one.
And our mission really is to get past the headlines, understand their roots, their activities, their real impacts.
Exactly. To separate the facts from maybe the broader narratives you hear, look at where they came from, how they operate.
Right. Context.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. It wasn't a street corner thing initially, was it?
No, not at all. The sources are clear, founded in 1993 inside Rikers Island.
Inside prison. That says a lot from the get-go.
It really does. The founders, Leonidas Sierra, or Junito, and Julio Marin Caballo, both Dominican guys, and both were facing murder charges at the time.
Serious charges.
Very. So that prison environment, the dynamics there, that's the crucible where this whole thing formed.
And the initial reason. Protection.
That seems to be the core of it.
Yeah.
Protecting Dominican inmates and other Hispanic inmates, too, from other groups.
Like African-American gangs, other established prison gangs.
Precisely. In that kind of environment, sticking together based on ethnicity or origin, it's often about survival.
Safety in numbers.
Yeah. And it's fascinating how that initial need just for safety inside morphed into something much bigger on the outside.
It's kind of a paradox, isn't it? Born in jail, but then becoming what the sources say is the first New York City Latino gang to spread regionally.
That's a significant claim. And it's a big jump.
How does that happen? How do they make that leap from Rikers to, well, the region?
Well, think about it. Those wands formed inside, they don't just disappear when someone gets released.
The network remains.
Exactly. Guys get out, they go back to their neighborhoods, they bring that structure, that identity, that loyalty with them.
Maybe filling a vacuum or just building on what was already there.
Could be both. Plus, that shared Dominican identity, that's powerful. It's a unifier.
And the name itself, Trinitarios, that's not random.
Not at all. Deeply symbolic. It's named after the three key heroes of the Dominican War of Independence.
Wow.
So it taps right into national pride, history.
Yeah.
And their slogan, Dios, Patria y Libertad. God, homeland, and liberty.
That's the Dominican Republic's national motto, isn't it?
It is. And the colors they use, lime green, red, blue, white, same as the Dominican flag.
So that identity is baked right in from the start.
Fundamentally. Seems absolutely central to who they are, or at least who they project themselves to be.
Okay, so prison protection gang, strong identity, then they start to grow. Sources point to a big jump around 2007, 2008.
Yeah, a period of rapid expansion then. It seemed to stabilize a bit after that.
And by 2011, the numbers in New York City alone were pretty substantial. Over 3,000 members.
Around 3,181 was the estimate, yeah. About 5% of the city's total gang members at that time.
Which isn't insignificant.
Not at all.
So what might have fueled that surge, that mid-2000s growth spurt?
Hard to say for sure, but it could be demographic shifts in Dominican communities, maybe aggressive recruitment, especially targeting younger people.
Or maybe smaller groups getting absorbed.
That's possible too. Consolidation under a stronger banner. Later stabilization could be, well, increased heat from law enforcement, or maybe just growing pains, internal stuff.
Makes sense. Geographically, where are they strongest? New York, New Jersey.
Those are the core areas, definitely. Upper Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, parts of Jersey, Albany, Long Island too.
But it doesn't stop there, does it? The reach seems wider.
Oh yeah, they've popped up all along the eastern seaboard, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, down to Georgia, Maryland, Florida, even Tennessee mentioned.
And internationally.
Yes. London, Madrid, and naturally back in the Dominican Republic itself.
That spread to Spain is interesting. The sources link it to deportations from the U.S.
Yeah, Latin American immigrants with criminal records being sent back or sent elsewhere.
Yeah.
And taking that gang affiliation with them.
Sort of an unintentional consequence of deportation policies.
It highlights how interconnected things are, migration, crime. It crosses borders.
Yeah.
And in Spain, it's not just Dominicans anymore.
Oh.
The membership there apparently includes Bolivians, Colombians, even some Spaniards. So they're adapting, recruiting locally.
Let's talk about how they're set up. The sources stress they're very organized, hierarchical.
Yeah, that seems to be a key characteristic, not just a loose collection of guys on the street.
So what does that look like? Formal recruitment.
Apparently so. You need a sponsor to get in. New members reportedly get a rule book.
A rule book? Seriously.
That's what the information suggests. They take an oath, swear to follow a constitution.
Wow. That points to a real effort to create, like, structure, loyalty, a clear chain of command.
Exactly. It allows for better control, coordination of activities. It sets them apart from less structured gangs.
And weapons. The machete is mentioned specifically.
Yeah, the weapon of choice, it's brutal and
Yeah.
distinctive.
Symbolic, maybe? Or just readily available?
Probably a bit of both. It's common in some cultures, very intimidating in close quarters, definitely projects a certain image.
But they use other weapons too, right? Guns, knives.
Of course. They're involved in serious violence, so they use whatever tools are effective or available. Guns, bats, knives, the works.
And the sources mention infiltrating schools to recruit.
Disturbing, isn't it? Targeting kids, ensuring the next generation for the gang, shows a long-term mindset.
So what are they actually doing? Our criminal activity list is long.
It really is.
Yeah.
Drug trafficking is major. Heroin, cocaine, crack cocaine, and increasingly fentanyl.
Which is incredibly dangerous.
Absolutely lethal. Then
Yeah.
you've got assault, murder, robbery, extortion, home invasions, illegal firearms. It's a full spectrum of serious crime.
Pretty standard portfolio for a major organized crime group, unfortunately.
It is. Diversified income streams, controlling different illicit markets. It gives them power and reach.
And law enforcement, they haven't ignored this. There was a big crackdown in 2009 in New York.
Yes, that seems to have been a major setback for them. Prosecutions by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York.
What made that one so effective, do you think?
Likely targeted key leadership, used powerful tools.
Hmm.
Then in 2011, you had those RICO charges against the Bronx Trinitarios gang, the BTG.
IKEO, that's the big one for tackling organized crime, right?
Exactly. Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. It lets authorities go after the entire enterprise, not just isolated crimes. 50 members and associates charged in that one.
And then the co-founder, Leonidas Sierra Junito, he got sentenced in 2014.
19 years for racketeering conspiracy. That was on top of an existing murder sentence. And around 140 other members convicted around that time, too.
You'd think that would be, well, crippling.
You would. But the sources suggest they resurged. They bounced back.
How does that even happen after losing leadership, so many members?
These groups can be incredibly resilient. The underlying factors, the reasons people join, they often don't go away. New leaders step up.
The network adapts.
And that strong identity, that loyalty, probably helps them weather those kinds of storms.
Interestingly, around that same time, post-crackdown, sources mention internal conflicts, gang wars between Trinitarios factions.
Yeah, starting around 2011, like a chapter from Sunset Park in Brooklyn apparently tried to expand into the Bronx without permission.
And that caused problems.
Big problems. Significant violence resulted. It shows that even with the hierarchy, there can be internal power struggles, competition for turf and resources.
Fragmentation. Does that weaken them overall or just make things more violent?
Can be both, really. Sometimes it weakens the central control. Other times it just leads to more bloodshed as factions fight it out.
And the pressure hasn't stopped. More recently, Massachusetts seems to be a focus.
Very much so. February 2025, federal authorities announced arrests 22 alleged members.
Charged with racketeering again.
Yes, and including allegations tied to 6 murders between 2017 and 2023 in Lynn and Lawrence.
Wow, 6 murders.
Yeah. And the racketeering activity allegedly spanned multiple cities in Massachusetts since at least 2019, plus drug dealing reaching into New Hampshire and Maine. Still very active, still expanding reach.
There was also that Operation Emerald Crush back in November 2019.
Right, in Massachusetts again.
Yeah.
18 Trinitarios arrested among a larger group. They seized a huge number of guns, 79 firearms, some stolen, some used in shootings, plus large amounts of drugs.
And even more indictments in Massachusetts in April 2024, 121.
Yeah, the pressure there seems continuous. It shows law enforcement is persistently targeting their operations in that region.
It's not just NY and J Mass either. Rhode Island had federal indictments back in 2010.
3 leaders of the Rhode Island chapter, yeah. Firearms and drug charges after an FBI undercover op.
And Spain, you mentioned they're active there. Are authorities cracking down?
They are. Members convicted for violent acts. And significantly, the Trinitarios have been officially designated as a criminal organization in Spain.
What does that designation mean legally?
It allows for tougher sentences. People can be prosecuted just for belonging to the group, not only for specific crimes they commit. It broadens the scope for investigations.
And they clash with rivals there too, like the NEDAs.
Yeah, reports of brawls in Madrid, same kind of turf wars and rivalries you see stateside.
Okay, we absolutely have to talk about the murder of Lisandro Jr. Guzman Feliz in 2018.
Such a horrible, tragic
It
case.
really seemed to capture public attention in a way few incidents do. The brutality, the mistake.
Absolutely devastating. 15 years old, he was in the NYPD Explorers program, wanted to be a detective.
And he was killed because they mistook him for someone else. Someone who supposedly disrespected a gang member's relative.
That's the story that came out, dragged out of a bodega in the Bronx, attacked with machetes, knives. Just horrific.
And it was filmed, it went viral.
Which brought the reality of that violence right onto people's screens. The outrage was immense and completely understandable.
Several Trinitarios were convicted of first-degree murder for that, right?
Yes, 5, initially convicted in June 2019 of murder, conspiracy, gang assault.
Mm.
2 others actually testified for the prosecution.
That must have provided a lot of insight into the gang's workings.
It often does in these cases. And then, after the verdict, one of the killers yelling, "Popote, hasta la muerte."
Trinitarios until death. That loyalty, even then.
That's intense. And later, in July 2022, 2 leaders of the specific faction involved were convicted of murder for ordering the hit.
So justice, at least in the legal sense, is ongoing. Several others still awaiting trial.
Right. But the case itself remains this incredibly stark example of the gang's capacity for brutality and the tragic cost to innocent lives and the community.
Lastly, the sources list quite a few rival gangs. It's a crowded, violent landscape.
Definitely. Crips, Dominicans don't play, who are often rivals despite shared origins. Tiny Rascal Gang, gangster disciples.
That feud with gangster disciples was mentioned in Massachusetts.
Yes. And MS-13 comes up in the context of that incident in Spain. A Trinitario reportedly attacked for associating with an MS-13 member. Shows how strict those lines are.
And the Nietas, we mentioned them in Madrid.
Right. So constant friction, competition, violence with numerous other groups, it's part of their operational reality.
Okay, so let's try to pull this together. We started with a prison gang. Rikers Island, 1993, formed for protection.
Driven by that strong Dominican identity, the name, the motto, the colors.
Then they grew, expanded out of New York, up and down the East Coast, even internationally.
Developed a surprisingly organized hierarchical structure, recruitment, rules, oaths.
Involved in a whole host of serious crimes, drugs, violence, murder, extortion. Very diversified.
Faced major law enforcement crackdowns, RICO charges, convictions of leaders and members.
Yeah, it showed resilience. Managed to resurge, although maybe with some internal fractures and factional wars.
And the Guzman Feliz murder served as this horrific public reminder of their brutality.
That they operate constantly navigating this complex world of rival gangs.
That sums it up pretty well. A complex picture, definitely.
Yeah. So thinking about all this, the cycle of violence, the law enforcement response, the gang's persistence, here's something maybe for you, the listener, to consider. What are the underlying forces at play here?
Beyond just policing and prosecution, what deep-seated societal issues might be feeding the formation and the stubborn endurance of groups like the Trinitarios? Are there different approaches, maybe more fundamental ones, needed to break that cycle for good?